Hi, I'm James and welcome to the latest review of a Twilight 2000 fan project. We're looking at the Boating Accident by Tom McCready, which is available through Drive-Thru RPG. Now, there's plenty of material starting to come out. It's great to see the fan involvement. Now this one features a setting that really will only work in Sweden. It won't work, unfortunately, for Poland. You could possibly modify bits of it. There's things you can pull out of it, but it would take a lot more work to have this be usable anywhere other than the actual setting it's written for. Now, the 8 pages have got details of a new vehicle, the STRB 90H and HS. Now, these are fast coastal patrol craft designed for raiding. They'll carry a number of troops each, half a platoon. Now, it's a nice little vehicle that will tie in nicely with games. I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about it because I think there's quite a bit here that you can pull out even if you don't necessarily plan to use it this way. Now, the scenario does also refer to the L version. I did a bit of checking up on that. Now, the L version adds lots of extra command gear because it's designed as a battalion level command, and adds an auxiliary generator to power them when the main engines aren't running. There is also a variant which isn't referred to, which has a temporary communication gear for company level. So there are some variants. Now the HS version is given pretty good detail, but there's a couple of things I found out when I actually did a bit of research. It's also got the auxiliary generator that the L version has got. It's got a head for the non-nautical amongst us. That means a toilet, and it's more comfort, including, bizarrely, air conditioning. So that was an interesting little aside. Some of the other bits I sort of researched, but the RBS-17 SSM is the Hellfire missile. Now, I'm not sure what date that came into service with the Swedish Navy on the STRB 90s. However, I think it would be reasonable even if it was after 1995 to bring them in. It's worth noting that in real life there were 120 purchased. So we've got a useful bit there. Now, I did note that the HS version was only actually ordered in 2002. So you'd perhaps struggle to bring it into the game. You could argue it came in earlier, particularly since the HS has also got an NBC overpressure system. I think that's where the aircon has come into that. I think the two are linked. So if it's got that there, you could argue Soviet resurgence, it might get pushed in earlier. I'm not sure. It's also worth noting that 20 were purchased by the Royal Norwegian Navy as the STRB 90N. N stands for Norsk. Well, I'm trying to read the writing. Utge, I'm sure, Norwegian version basically. Now this was armed identically with with some less of the options. You had the two M2HBs and the remote sea protector system, which is the Hellfire mount. You had a couple of other modifications. The anchor was modified to be mounted on the rear of the boat rather than the front, because that actually could then be dropped and used to pull the boat off in an emergency. It's also had a higher deck to give a bit more comfort to the people below, and unlike the standard Swedish version, it also had the head there as well. Now, Tom has noted that the US and Royal Navy both trialled them. In real life, the Royal Navy trialled 4 but handed them back, not purchasing them. The US purchased 7 for riverine warfare. It's interesting that 2 were actually captured by Iran in an incident where the boats went into their water. I have a feeling there's a lot more behind the history of that, because 2 boats suffering engine failure, yeah, I'm not 100% sure. So how could you use it? Well, you could have the Royal Navy purchasing it. It would be a very useful vehicle for use with the Royal Marines with their role in Norway. So I think you could probably, with the Soviet threat still in existence, justify having a number for your Royal Marines. Ditto for the US. It was bought by the US Navy. yeah, that would make sense. You could even look at perhaps the Marines purchasing them, which gives you the option to use them on the Baltic coast, which I think is something I'll probably do in my campaign. So I'm probably going to have a few purchased by the Royal Navy. Not sure about the US Navy. I think I'll have a think about that one. So the scenario itself, now it's not a very detailed scenario. It's more an outline for a scenario. You will have to do a fair bit of work setting it for your campaign. For example, it doesn't actually give you the location for Lundstrom's force. You would have to work that one out yourself. I think it does give you a few sort of suggestions and rumours where you could be. So you've got that. You've got the Marauder gang, the Last Vikinger. Because my Scandinavian pronunciations are never good, so I apologise for all the Scandinavians watching. It's a marauder group preying on both sides. I like the way that you're having to use them as allies. That's a nice little touch, and I think it's the convenience or convenient bedfellows is how I describe it. Neither side really wants the other. I mean, the DIA are actually paying bounties on the berets, for example. So yeah, the main NPC, in fact the only NPC that's detailed, is Thorsten Hairy Britches Rundstrom. Now Hairy Britches is a reference back to Norse history, which is a nice little touch. He's a fairly straightforward NPC. I think you probably would flesh him out a bit, or at least I would in my games. Otherwise it becomes a bit of a cardboard cutout. I think just giving a bit of background to him would probably help with that. The whole concept of the scenario, though, I do find there is a little bit of an oddity, which is in the loss of the general. Why is everything going wrong when you lose him? Surely he has a staff, and I can't see the logic in the collapse. It would be very unlikely in my eyes that you would have the collapse unless he'd also lost his staff. You could argue they were on the boat with him. Yeah, that sort of works. I hate to say something like that is unrealistic, because instantly flashing through my mind was the loss of the Chinook over or in the Molokin Tower crash, where you lost almost all the main bodies dealing with counter-terrorism in Northern Ireland all in one go in real life. So it's possible. You might have to sort of play around a little bit, I think, and come up with a reason. In fact, there's a thought there, you could even convert that into an aircraft crash or a helicopter crash on his transit. That might work well. You could even argue that they pulled all the resources in for that, which is why there's then no helicopter for the search and rescue side. That becomes a possibility. You probably need to sit down. I probably would sit down for a couple of hours, coming up with a few bits and pieces, fleshing the scenario out before I played it. But it's there as a concept. It has some nice thoughts in it, and the boat that you get that's being detailed is really useful. So would I go out and buy it? Well, I did, mainly for review. I probably wouldn't have bought it if I hadn't, but that's simply because I'm not gaming in Poland. So I'm gaming in Poland, not Sweden. And I do want to encourage as much buying of the fan material as you can, especially my own, if I'm being sarcastic. But let's encourage people to write stuff. It won't be perfect. It's not going to be a professional standard. Mine isn't. It's a nice thought. It's a nice effort. Bit of fleshing out, and I think we've got a really good scenario potential here. Hope that's been useful, and I'll see you soon for another review.